My friends, have you ever been playing a video game only to find something completely disappear? An object or character in-game that should be there has vanished? Maybe a one-off glitch, maybe something repeatable, if you could ever know how. Well, it's that time of year for a Pokémon Snap video, and today we have the mysterious story of the Vanishing Tree Anomaly. So you're playing Pokémon Snap on the Nintendo 64. You load into the beach stage, taking control of Todd in the 01 vehicle. You snap a picture of Pidgey right off the start, and are immediately taken by the beautiful piece of the stage. Doduo appears and runs across the tracks. Maybe you check out Pikachu and use apples to entice him to the surfboard. How lovely. Then you look around and see Butterfree flying around near this innocuous palm tree with Lapras surfacing for air off in the distance. But wait, just how innocuous is this palm tree? And could it possibly hold the key to breaking Pokémon Snap, forever shifting the paradigm of high score attempts 25 years after the game's release? Well, let's find out, friends. Remember this palm tree. Commit it to memory for the duration of this video, because you'll need it. So here's the deal. The glitch you're about to see has happened to a small handful of people throughout time playing Pokémon Snap, and most of these occurrences were never recorded. There are very, very few instances of recorded footage that have made their way online of this glitch, so it's very rare. It is possible that even you might have experienced this glitch playing in your youth without even knowing, because it seems somewhat random as far as we know. But if we could ever figure it out and make it not random, it could fundamentally change the game forever. So I'm playing the beach course one night, attempting to get a new high score in the Pikachu on a Stump subcategory. Pikachu's max score in the game is 8,000 points and requires the Flying Pikachu on Articuno Special on the Cave stage, which I've mentioned a few times in previous videos. However, it can be fun as a sort of side category to see how high of a score you can get with other Pokemon specials or Pokemon on certain stages, and the website Cyberscore does track some of these scores. One example, the famous Balloon Pikachu has been maxed out with a perfect 1600 special, 1000 size, 1000 pose, double to 7200, which we can see in this very nice photograph from longtime Pokemon Snapper Nilu. In a previous Pokemon Snap video, I mentioned a lot of Nilu's scores, and he didn't have the photos uploaded at the time, but here it is, a beautiful 7200 Balloon Pikachu. And so naturally, Pikachu on a Stump is an interesting score as well, and it has an intriguing composition specifically because it is not maxed out. The high score on Pikachu on a Stump is 7,020 points by Maximum Prime, and it involves the 1,300 point special for Pikachu on a Stump, 670 size, 1,300 pose for playing the Pokeflute, thus angering Pikachu and causing him to use Thunder Shock, and then 480 points for the second Pikachu. There might be another 10 or 20 points able to be squeezed out of this high score, which makes it compelling to keep attempting. See if one can possibly get 70-30 or 70-40. And of course, seeing the number go up or down is the essence of all high score gaming or speedrunning. So anyways, I'm grinding some Pikachu on a Stump attempts, working on my own PB of 6850, and they're going pretty much as planned. You know, enter the stage, Pester Ball out Scyther, which initiates the 2 Pikachus running out, play the Pokeflute, take some pictures, and keep trying. But then I load into Beach on another attempt, and I notice something very, very odd. The palm tree, which I mentioned earlier, is just gone. Vanished. I had to do a double take. What in the world is going on? This palm tree, seemingly a part of the level's architecture or design, is just gone. I played out this attempt, not really noticing anything else different at all, and then loaded back into Beach a few more times, and the palm tree was back. It had returned. A few more loads, and the palm tree was always there. What on the good green earth happened to make this palm tree disappear for one load on the stage and not again? Well, it's not exactly known, but presumably it's some kind of loading glitch or a memory glitch, possibly some kind of memory overflow. The only thing I can wager is that, looking at the footage, before loading into the missing tree beach run, I went to the photo album twice and then the Pokémon report. I wanted to see what my Pikachu on a Stump PB looked like to compare and get a better idea of what I'm trying to do, and accessing the photo album was accidental because I'm unfortunately not all that familiar with the Japanese text. That's the version I was playing, so I wasn't sure which button was which. But could this be the key to the glitch? Accessing the photo album or Pokémon report before cubing into the stage? I asked around and learned that a small handful of other Pokémon Snap players had experienced this through their hours of playing the game and going for high scores. One such gamer, Tsukige, one of the very top Pokémon Snap high score players in the world, shared with me this video footage from the tunnel stage of something very similar happening. He titles the clip, "Tunnel Object Disappearing Bug." But instead of a tree disappearing, it's this weird sort of electrical switchboard thing? In any matter, it is a sort of similar texture or obstruction which is disappearing from the stage. Now, why might this be important? Well, the whole point of Pokémon Snap is to take pictures of Pokémon while maximizing size in the frame up to 1000 points. There might be situations where an object like a tree or a rock or electric switchboard gets in the way of a Pokémon, whether it be the main subject Pokémon or a bonus Pokémon. Or the object might get in the way of an optimal angle for throwing apples or pester balls, and thus being able to unload these textures and objects at our desire could be very fruitful. Or could it? Well, hold that thought for now as we try to recreate this glitch. So I started up my Pokémon Snap English cartridge, played Beach, came out, loaded into my photo album twice, then the Pokémon report, and no dice. It didn't work. The tree was still there. I tried this a few times, pretty much the exact thing, a bit of variance here and there, but the tree was always there. This was pretty discouraging, and I really had thought that the initial vanishing tree anomaly was indeed super rare. The following night, however, I tried it on the Japanese cartridge. My first attempt, playing Beach, coming out, opening the photo album twice, and then the Pokémon report, and then going back to the Beach stage, well, it did not yield success. The tree was still there. I was actually almost ready to give up at this point, but then the following attempt, opening the photo album, opening the Pokémon report, going back into the Beach, it happened again. The vanishing tree anomaly happened again. And it seemed like I may have caused it to happen by loading the various albums. I mean, that's still kind of inconclusive, it could be anything, but I did load the albums before experiencing this both times. I took this opportunity to play around with the vanished tree and tested something that Tsukige wrote in the description of his clip. It will be revived when developing. Yes, notice here, I take a picture of the empty space where the tree should be, and then when I go to see Professor Oak to assess the pictures, the tree reappears when the image is developed. So the tree, the object itself, never really left. It just disappeared visually while still actually being there. I mean, that's really bizarre, and this is actually pretty disappointing, because my initial hope that this could make some high score attempts and some photographs easier or less obstructed would not come to fruition. Any obstructing object, like a tree, seems to reappear once the photos are developed. The same likely goes for the tunnel switchboard. I tried repeating my process on tunnel, but haven't had any luck in getting the switchboard to disappear just yet. But either way, that initial hope that it might make taking pictures of Electabuzz a little easier, less obstructions in the way of the image, or in the way of apples to entice and position the Electabuzzes together, well, that hope is dashed. It is just so strange that the objects reappear in photographs, but because this is the case, there is no known use of this glitch at the current moment in time. But imagine if it did have a use. I can think of numerous ways unloading objects in the game could be extremely useful. One obvious one is Charizard's perfect score. I've talked at length in a previous video about how a perfect 1000 size Charizard, and that's perfect 4500 score, may be impossible because there's this little bit of Charizard's belly below the visible lava line blocked out from being snappable in your photograph. If we could find a way to remove or unload the lava from the level and have it remain removed once the photos are developed, this could pave the way to a perfect 4500 Charizard score and probably countless other similar discoveries in the game. But alas, even if there was some way to unload the lava while playing, it is likely that the lava would reload when showing Professor Oak the image. We still don't really know what's going on here, and honestly, that is what makes this so compelling. You see, while Pokémon Snap does have a dedicated community who still play and compete for high scores and examine new techniques and discoveries, it's certainly much smaller in size than, say, the communities that do the same for some of the more classic speed games, like Ocarina of Time or Super Mario 64. The amount of work and investigation that had to go into discovering tricks like the Ganondorf or making carpetless viable on console are just truly mind-blowing. It took a lot of effort, and one can imagine a world where these kinds of discoveries just never got fully fleshed out to the point they're at today, and so these games aren't as developed or explored as we see in the current world. And so the unfortunate reality is that there may just simply never be anyone who deeply looks into this disappearing object glitch in Pokémon Snap to a point where it could become viable or useful. You know, maybe it'll never become viable. Maybe the objects are always going to reappear and there's nothing deeper to see here. But maybe not. And it's only with the full study and investigation from dedicated gaming scientists that we might ever find out. And unfortunately, at this point in the game's history, you know, who's going to step out and really dig their teeth into this? We might just never get to find out. Maybe no one will ever look into it more deeply than this. I hope not, and that's partly why I'm making this video. But in this case, this is just Pokémon Snap we're talking about, a relatively popular game with a decent number of active players from one of the most popular franchises in the world. And so I can't help but ponder, how many glitches or discoveries are there in even more obscure games which will just never see the light of day? Never be discovered, experienced, investigated? It almost makes me sad, lamenting the forgotten and lost glitches, tricks, sequence breaks, and speedrun time saves that will simply never come to fruition. And like, what exactly is this glitch? Some kind of loading glitch or memory overflow? You know, who knows what other techniques or discoveries might come to light if we could ever crack the code on this one. You know, just think about how many insane glitches came out of arbitrary code execution in Ocarina of Time. Imagine something similar here. What if we could find some way to play with the memory to duplicate Pokemon? You know, get more Charmanders or Squirtles into the frame. That would be the holy grail in Pokemon Snap. Or even finding a way to halt the movement of the 0-1 so you could sit in one spot and take your time on a shot. That would be very useful too. There is a Game Shark code for that out there, so it might be feasible, it might be somewhere in the game's memory. You know, and the idea of unloading objects could obviously have a ton of use in-game, especially if they remained unloaded once the photo was developed. Recently, legendary Pokemon snapper Fekaterigo reached a total score of 318,000 on his report score, which adds up your personal records for all 63 Pokemon. This is the world-leading score, and we wonder if something like 319 or 320,000 might be possible someday. Or if 318,000 was the last new 1,000 milestone that we'll ever see. These tricks I've described, if they were ever to become possible, could certainly help with that. But I think at this point, 25 years after the game's release, there's just not enough people around to dig that deeply into the game's code and see if these things are even plausible. And that's life, I suppose. I shouldn't cry too much over a game running its course over several decades, but I simply cannot help but ponder. By the way, I mentioned Electabuzz earlier, and just wanted to note there was a brand new record set for Electabuzz by Brazilian snapper Nilu. I mean, wow, look at this amazing shot, 5380, just 10 points higher than Fekaterigo's score, and keeping Fekaterigo's goal of all 63 records at bay once again. So yeah, people are still playing Pokémon Snap for the N64 with quite remarkable results. But hey, that's the story of Pokémon Snap's Vanishing Tree Anomaly. Let me know if you've ever experienced something similar in the comments, or have any thoughts on discoveries in video games that will never happen. I always love to hear your insight. Thanks for watching, my friends, stay true, and I'll see you in the next stream or video.